Now we're joined by the author, Philip Pullman, who does a lot of work in schools, and Mark Williams-Thomas, who's a former detective and child protection expert. Morning, both.
Morning.
Now, Philip Pullman, you campaigned vigorously, didn't you, against this scheme? You must be relieved that it's being scaled back.
Well, I don't know about campaign vigorously. I answered questions when I was asked them. I am relieved it's being scaled back, yes, because it seems like a return to the land of common sense after a long bout on the sea of hysteria.
Mark Williams-Thomas, tell Philip Pullman why you think he's wrong on this.
Well, I think the problem is that we've got to a position where we were asking individuals who have access to children or vulnerable adults to show through a CRB that they haven't got anything in their past as far as convictions or information that would cause a risk. Now, that doesn't mean if you've got a conviction for theft or criminal damage. It means if you've got a conviction or information that relates to a sexual contact or an offence against a child or vulnerable adults, and particularly where Mr. Pullman's concerned with regards to authors. I mean, it's important to remember the case of William Main, who was convicted in 2004, and he was an author that was going into schools talking to and reading with young children. Now, if we scale back and we don't check authors, if he were today to go into schools and not be required to do a CRB, in essence, he would be going in having been convicted.
That's the point, isn't it, Philip Pullman? I mean, nobody's suggesting that maybe you need to be vetted, but there are bad apples.
Well, hard cases make bad law. And as far as I remember about the case of William Main, he invited children into his home where they went with the agreement of their parents, and there they were abused. That's not anything that's likely to happen today.
Okay, but without focusing too much.
Let me finish this point, please. Let me finish this point.
Okay.
How anyone can groom a child for sexual activity in a classroom with 30 other children in the course of a 50-minute lesson while their teacher is also present is beyond me. Perhaps there's some magic power that paedophiles have. I just don't understand the need for the level of inquiry here.
Okay, but you could get to know the children, get to know their movements,
well,
where
only
they
if
live,
you go back again. Only if you go back again and again.
But isn't Milton Bases better here, Philip Pullman?
Only if you go back again and again. And the law will still require people who go back for intensive work with children over a long period to be vetted. I think that's fair enough. But in the case of somebody who's just going in for one lesson with one group of children, it was absurd because you're never alone with a child. You're always another adult present.
Mark Williams-Thomas, didn't this go too far, though, in the fact that even parents potentially could have to have been CRB checked for taking their friends' daughters or whatever to a ballet class? I mean, it was going that far, wasn't it?
Well, this is the problem. The problem is that actually it didn't go that far, but the government were very, very poor in their explaining the process. I understand the process very clearly, and I've been very involved in its rollout completely independently, but I have the understanding. The problem is a large majority of people didn't, and the government didn't come and clarify that. If you were agreeing with another parent to take a child to a club or to an activity, that wasn't caught by it. But let's be very clear, we are now in a world where we understand offenders operating better than we ever have done. And if you create opportunities for offenders to gain access to children and loopholes, they will do that. And particularly within the voluntary sector, not so much in the statutory sector, but particularly in the voluntary sector. So what we need to do is we need to be saying to people, if you're going to have access to children, and that access to children is on a set amount of time or days, then you need to be required to be checked. Because in the same way as if you want to go abroad, you have a passport. In the same way as you want to fly a plane, you have a license, drive a car, you have a license. Why can't the public accept that actually the need to work with children would require a license? And I really think that these changes are about pandering to certain individuals who have come out and said things without properly understanding how offenders operate, and also about saving money.
Philip Pullman, I mean, these changes were initially introduced in the wake of the Soham murders, and doesn't that prove that however inconvenient it is to fill in a form, it's better to be safe?
Well, yet again, misinformation. As I understand it, Ian Huntley, the Soham murderer, did not gain access to those two unfortunate children whom he murdered through his work. They met him because they came to his house to talk to his girlfriend, who had no convictions of anything at all.
Well, we can
that's
never
how he
prove
came
that.
into contact with them.
Yeah.
So that's a very bad case. What also worries me is cases like the ladies who arranged the flowers in, was it Gloucester Cathedral? For goodness sake, ladies going into a church to arrange flowers, having to have a check because they might come into contact occasionally, passing them in the aisle, a choir boy or two. How mad is that?
Okay, well, it's not going to happen now. I'm really sorry, Mark Williams, Thomas. We're out of time. We're coming up to 9 o'clock.